So the most important thing is to remember to keep it simple. The more that you add, the more complexity is added, the more uncertainty, the more questions and objections you're going to create for yourself. Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. Today I got my OGs in the studio with me again. I got Gerard and Obediah on the road and Andres in studio. We're about to go over some very important subjects within sales in general, JKR Windows specific. And just like every other week, we're bringing you as much knowledge and wisdom as we possibly can from all of our years of experience to help you take your game to the next level. And with me to start us off, Mr. Gerard Everett. Let's hear it, brother.
All right. So yeah, we're going to kick this one off, guys, with qualifying questions. So super important. We want to make sure that not only are we setting appointments, but we're setting qualified appointments. Because what happens when we set a qualified appointment? A lot of times they close. And guys, let's be real. We're not out there to set appointments. I mean, we are, but we're out there to get deals. We're out there to get closes. And qualified appointments is how we do it. So basically, we're going to be focusing on qualified questions. So I don't want to get it twisted. We need to stick to the script. The script is what it is. It's built a certain way for specific reasons, and sticking to it is what we need to do. But being able to, as what we would consider level 2 coordinator, is getting beyond just script, is being able to ask qualifying questions, building rapport, things like this, level 2. So the qualifying questions, it's a super good tool to use. Now, I did have the team submit some ideas for qualifying questions, but before we do, is there anything off top of mind that you guys would want to start with, some specific things that you guys always ask to qualify a customer?
You know what, I loved your example you gave before we started the show, and all the references that we can use and the reasons why we put these together are really good for everybody to understand where the stuff comes from and why we do it. And when we listen to the recordings, how we're inspired to put together trainings based off of what we're hearing. So why don't we start off with that little story that kind of inspired this whole training?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in the Zero app. Great app. Everybody needs to be in there because, again, it inspires things like this. So I was listening to, we have a new coordinator. He's been in the field for a couple weeks. He's absolutely killing it. He's one of those guys getting to his 5 cells first 30 days, the whole deal. Awesome guy. But anyway, his numbers seem like they've slipped a little bit last week and a half or so. And now I was listening to some of his recordings, and I noticed that there were some minor adjustments within his script. One of the major ones was, instead of saying, and if you're open-minded to look into it, segueing into framing the appointment, he was just like, would you be interested at all to look into it? And what that does, it's a yes or no question. And absolutely, if they want to get you off the door, that's first opportunity. You ask a yes or no question, they're going to say no. So I asked him, I was like, so what's the deal with changing the script there? I mean, it's super important to be on script. And he had mentioned that his directors were just talking about, having better qualified appointments, things like this. And in his mind, he thought, well, maybe I'll change the script a little bit to get a better quality appointment. And in listening to it, my feedback was, hey, let's not change the script. The script is built a certain way for a certain reason. We need to stick to it. Mm-hmm. Instead of changing the script, what we need to do as like a level 2 coordinatorship is to start implementing some qualifying questions instead. So leave the script how it is, implement some qualifying questions. Now we're on the road. Now we're on track getting those qualified appointments.
And that's something important to remember as we're navigating, mentoring and coaching and, helping people understand the importance of these level 2 coordinator aspects of the business. You not only have to point them down this direction as a director to set more qualified appointments, but then give them some tools and give them some direction. Because otherwise it ends up being something like this, where we're finding out later on down the road that he didn't necessarily have the direction to use that. And he started just taking it upon himself to change the script instead of taking some direction from an experienced director on how to apply that. So these qualifying questions are extremely important. But if anybody else has noticed around here, the newest people, before they start thinking about all this sophisticated bullshit, they always do the best when they're just using the script and they're doing exactly what we tell them to do. It works. But, we're humans. We like to complicate things, and we're trying to figure out ways to do it better, and we think we know how to do it better. But realistically, the script works. We've got that sucker dialed in. We know it works. Once you've got that script dialed in, the next level is you get to a point where you're so comfortable and confident, it's flowing out of you. You don't have to think about it anymore. You can answer questions, jump right back into it without ever skipping a beat. Now you're prepared enough to start asking some qualified questions to make sure that these appointments are next level qualified. So that's what we're here to discuss today. What are some of those qualifying questions?
Well, I think we should probably start from the beginning, right? Talking to somebody, hey, how are you doing? Something I like asking a lot, how long have you been in the home? They can tell you so much. Maybe they just moved in. Maybe they're renting. They've been here for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. And then you follow it up with like, how do you like the neighborhood? Oh, well, hey, it's great. I hate it. I don't want it, whatever it is, right? And you get a lot of info from them. And because if they've been there a while, they're having issues, right? So you can start pointing out pain points. If they're brand new, they're going to be doing upgrades. So whichever question you ask, I think it's going to give you a lot of info back. And those two are the main ones I always ask every time. It's kind of like keep the script going, straight script, and then always ask those two questions. And I get a lot of info just by starting that. And it gets very conversational as well. It's not just you talking the whole time.
What do you think is the other benefits of asking those kind of questions?
Well, I think Andres, he explained it really well. My biggest thing is for one, it's engagement. We're not just pouring script on them and not engaging them at all. But what's really important is, again, you find out their situation. There's a huge difference between homeowners that have been there for 2 months and 10 years. Some additional questions are like, what are the long-term plans with the home? And also, what are some upgrades that you guys have already done with the home? Or how often do you guys do upgrades with the home? Because some people, they take on a project a year. Like, we do the kitchen this year, we'll do the bathrooms next year. So then you can be like, okay, and I'd imagine windows are on that list, right? Like, yeah, but that's kind of down the list. And then you can start tying it back. Well, hey, as long as they're on the list, we might as well get in front of you so you guys can see what the market looks like with windows, and with this opportunity, we might be able to actually bump it up on the list.
And then what I usually ask after that, I get the intro done. I've heard it both ways. One more assumptive, one more of a question. I usually say, when was the last time you thought about doing an energy efficient upgrade to the home? And the thing there, it can be a whole bunch of windows. I'm not asking when's the last time you thought about windows. It's an energy efficient upgrade. It could be an AC unit. It can be solar. It could be windows, a roof, whatever. And then people open up, oh, well, I thought about doing solar or windows or this and that. You're like, awesome. And if they say no, never, it's a great time, because you're like, oh, then you know what? This is probably nothing for you. And then you go straight into the script. So it's always a segue from that question. For me, when I was knocking, that actually always worked really great. And I was always able to get out all my script by asking that simple question right there.
Mm-hmm. And that one's built right in there. So that's a simple one. It's part of it. Everybody knows that one. When was the last time you guys did think about doing an energy efficient upgrade to your home? And if they do start talking about, we've been thinking about doing solar. We have actually looked at windows. We got an energy audit done on our home. We're thinking about doing some additional insulation. That's a pretty good indicator that these are the type of customers that we're looking for. They're energy conscious. They're already thinking about doing upgrades on their home. Those are additional notes that you can put into the calendar to let your director know that I was thorough with this. I asked some extra questions, and I probed a little bit for some more information. And those are the best. When you get in there and you see that there's notes and they were thorough and they were writing an interest level and all of the additional questions that you asked to qualify that customer, that feels good as a director when you see somebody's put that much time into setting the appointment and qualifying those customers. Am I right?
Absolutely. You got anything, Obi?
So I kind of cut out there for a minute, but first question I always ask is, are you the homeowner to begin with? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I want to get through it first. If they're not a homeowner, then I want to figure out who else is there, because otherwise I'm wasting my time. But one of the things, just on top of what Andres is saying, is like, once I find out they've been in the home for X amount of years, or if they've just moved in, say within the last year or so, I want to ask where they moved from. Just knowing how people move in from California sell high, buy low here, especially in today's market in Utah. I want to know that because I know that they may have some extra cash set aside to do upgrades on the house. And then once I find that out, from California, or, rather than, I just moved from Mississippi, you know what I mean? Chances are they didn't come with a whole lot of money. You know what I mean? So I try to ask questions. It doesn't seem like I'm trying to get anything out of it. It looks like I'm just trying to get to know them. But in doing that, I find out information that's going to help me out with this sale. So it doesn't sound so salesy talking to them, and at the same time, it seems like I'm building a really good rapport with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was one of the other things when I asked you what are some of the other benefits of doing this, is if you do it in the right way, they don't realize what we're doing. We're just doing it in a friendly, like really curious way. And we're trying to build rapport with them. We're trying to get them in a very short period of time to trust us. And what better way to do that than to show interest in them? As human beings, we are all just naturally inclined to love talking about ourselves and hearing other people talk about us. And that's the best way to build rapport, is to talk about their home and their family and the pictures on the wall, and to ask them about the things that they're going through. And sometimes you got to be careful because they'll lead you down this path and want to talk forever. But it's right there, instant rapport, just to start talking about somebody and their journey and where they came from and their family.
Another benefit would be, depending on when they moved in. I mean, if they moved in 10 years ago, well, guess what? They probably have tons of equity in the home as well. So that's another thing that you can kind of add to the wheelhouse of how to have this make sense to them.
Oh, yeah.
So another thing too, Gerard, is when you're asking about how long they've been in the home, if they've been in the home for 30 plus years and they got windows from 1980s, there's a reason why they haven't replaced them. You know what I mean? And so it's a good reason to ask to see what's going on, because sometimes these are older people who are living on a fixed income now. Before that, they were just barely making it. You know what I mean? Rather than sending us into Social Security income house, there's no way they can afford windows, even if the house is paid off.
And then when I do ask about the efficiency, right? Or have you ever thought about the efficiency upgrade? I think it's kind of funny. Most people, they're like, I'm paying a whole bunch of money on my energy bills. I'm going to get solar. And that's a great cue for us. We're like, look, this is what we're doing. And you have all these issues with your windows, and we're going to save you money. Because now, you know how in the summertime your bills go from 200 to 400? Now it's going to stay a lot lower. So you won't even need to get. I've sold a whole bunch of deals because I'm talking to people about, let's look into windows first, then you can look into solar. And they look into it and like, yeah, actually, I'd rather do this and do solar, because all that's doing is I'm not paying for money, but I'm not saving any energy. You're still spending just the same amount of energy, you're just not saving any.
And whether they have solar or they're thinking about solar, I always compliment them. Like, hey, you're obviously thinking in the right direction. Now, and then what I'll say is, the idea is like, you want to make your house more efficient. That's kind of the idea. You tighten it up first, and then you would add the solar as like a support to that. But in doing the solar first, what's going to happen, you're still pumping all the energy through your windows, your AC unit, your furnace. They're still running all day, especially during the summertime. So the idea is make it more tight, make it more efficient, and then the solar is a great accessory to that. Now, also kind of a different approach or a different take is, maybe they've already looked at windows before. So you want to unpack that a little bit. Like, okay, great. And who did you guys get a quote through? How many quotes did you get? Okay, well, what was the reason you guys didn't move forward with a quote? Just some simple stuff like that. Just unpack it, and then it gives you an idea of like, okay, they got an Anderson quote. Well, awesome. Guess what? We got great quality, better service, better warranty. We're going to be able to come in way more competitive. But then also it's like, well, I got an Anderson quote, or excuse me, not Anderson, like a Jones Paint and Glass quote. So then you can start kind of unpacking that, talking about how maybe service levels aren't the greatest, windows aren't the greatest. 3 to 5 years, you're going to probably be looking into windows again. So there are things that would help starting position us, as a high quality, great option. It's going to have all the great products and or all the service and everything, but also we're going to be competitive. It's going to separate us from, again, the Jones Paint Glass as well. It's important to kind of categorize us. And that's something I teach, say, directors a lot. It's important to be able to categorize us so we're not lumped into, like a Jones Paint and Glass or something like that.
And I think it's pretty important too, like when you're asking, well, how come it didn't move forward? You have to go under with a lot of confidence. if you're a little bit shy, right? You're a little bit shaky, and you ask them. Some people might be like, well, none of your business or whatever. But if you're going in there, you're having a conversation. Well, let me know what happened. Was it the wrong product? Was it the price? Like, what is it? And most people, they're actually going to tell you exactly why they didn't move forward. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they even looked into us. It wasn't the right time. Awesome. Well, let's look at it again, right? This is what I can do for you right now.
And it's amazing. If you start a question with just out of curiosity, or if you don't mind me asking, it's amazing. Like, they'll basically answer anything. You say that with confidence, you can ask anything.
Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
And it's obviously always good to get them. I like to assume some pain points, and then say, like, we've had a lot of your neighbors. We've noticed we've set up some of your neighbors before, just kind of talking with the neighborhood. They're just talking about how the windows aren't very energy efficient. There's a lot of heat coming in on these west sides, and kind of get them to agree to that. And then you start asking more questions, and out of like the energy efficiency and the heat and stuff like that, what's like the biggest issue you guys are dealing with? So you get them to agree to pain points, and then you could be like, and out of those, what's one you're dealing with the most?
Yeah.
And the more that they start talking about it, you get them to open up about their windows, they're selling themselves. Each time, every problem they talk about, that is planting a seed in their head that they actually have a problem. And what are we here to do? We're here to solve their problems.
And the more of those conversations that you have, the more arsenal you have to talk to additional customers. Because, each of us have all talked to customers that have had their upstairs bedroom that got blared by the sun all day long. And that's the bedroom that gets the hottest. And then there's a bedroom on the other side of the house on the north side that never gets sun, and it's in the shade and it's under an awning. And that side of the house over there is just so cold during the winter time that nobody uses that side of the house either during the winter. And the more times you've heard that from customers, you can come up to a house and see the solar orientation and be able to call it out and just tell them exactly. I bet you got a room on the other side of your house that's underneath the awning over on the north side that gets really cold in the winter. Am I right?
Something that I used to say, I'd get talking about that, get them agreeing to it and their pain points. And I would say, you paid for the whole house. You might as well be able to use it, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny. I'm sitting here thinking, I think every time as a coordinator, every time you set an appointment, you should have in the notes why we're going in there. If you just say, hey, it's an old home, they thought about it, that is not a valid issue. They got to have issues with the noise, with the heat, with the functionality. So you got to make sure you're doing this fact finding every single time. You're like, oh, well, they're old. Okay, so what's wrong with them, right? You don't just want to replace them because they're old. Maybe they're just not efficient. They're not opening right. You might have those storm windows that it's 2 windows. Every single appointment they're setting as a coordinator, there should be notes on why we're going there. Mm-hmm. It should never be just because, they're kind of interested in the deal. There's always a reason. People are not going to replace if they don't actually have issues.
There you go. And that goes back to having that reputation.
Sorry, Jeff. I was just going to say, that helps us solve the problem of the yes men. The people just say yes to get you off the porch. They have no intention of doing anything. If you haven't fact found, then you won't know whether or not they're yes men.
Mm-hmm.
We can get the right people in there, or maybe they're just the lambs and the bull's going to come home and shut it down as soon as I show up to the door. Getting those questions will be there.
Yeah,
absolutely. Then you've got something to bring to the table. You got this confidence because you've got a little bit of a background on this customer to know that there are some pain points. And also you've got confidence in your coordinator, whoever set that thing. They're putting notes in there and they're giving you something to work with. And when you have that kind of arsenal to go in there and to talk to a customer and bring up their pain points that's already been discussed, you've got extra confidence in that coordinator's appointments moving on. Mm-hmm. Because you know that they're setting it up correctly, they're asking the questions, they're hitting on the pain points, and they're giving you this foundation walking into that appointment that's better than somebody who's just setting to set.
And that's the thing, is we just need to make sure we're setting to sell,
Mm-hmm.
not setting to just have an appointment on there.
And there's a hypothetical as well that I didn't do a lot of follow-up, which I should have, but I got Draper going on it for a second. And it's a hypothetical, and I pulled it from when we would do the scale from 1 to 10. And it's really just, and this kind of plays into our director script as well, but it's like after you set the appointment, and it's just like hit him with the hypothetical and just be like, okay, well, hey, let's just say that, we solve your problems. You love the product and service. But most importantly, if this fits into your budget, is there anything holding you back from moving forward with us tonight? And they'd be like, well, as long as we check those boxes, no, I don't think there'd be any problem. And then Obi goes in there and he hits him with that in his intro and then his close, and it's just layering that in.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, boom, they're ready to go.
And they've already made a couple of small commitments. And you've already set the expectation about how this appointment's going to go and the urgency, the opportunity that they're going to have to take advantage of this if the timing is right and we can check all those boxes for them. And now they're playing this narrative in their head that, you know, this is an opportunity and they're going to ask me to make a decision tonight. And this is my perception of this is that it so far has been a good experience and it's going to be a great opportunity for me. And now I just got to make sure that those guys, us, can check the boxes for them.
And I think it keeps the congruency up too. The more congruent our process is from start to finish, the more trust people have in us. You know what I mean? So if the coordinators are going in there saying the same exact thing, ask the same questions, I already know the answers to the questions. I come in and reiterate those questions. All right, and this is something I do anyways. Get in there and say, hey, so-and-so told me that you were seeing this issue and that issue. Well, what exactly is it? Which rooms are they? Because I'm trying to solve a problem, you know? Mm-hmm. And then that just shows them like, oh yeah, so they do talk. They have this. This is an organization. The information is getting processed. I'm going to be taken care of just the same way, you know? And then same thing with the three things like I was talking about, thing I get into. I'm going to ask you these things. If I could make sense of it, obviously we'd move forward. And then they're getting us before they even, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I think you hit out a little bit there, Obi. But the important thing to know as coordinators is that everything that you guys are saying indoors, we are doubling down in the appointments every single time. So, yeah, you might only be there for 5 minutes, but if they got that info from you, right, they know that's what's expected. And then, like I said, Obi goes back in, he says the same three things. And they're like, okay, yeah, they're legit. And we're keeping our word, right? Like the main thing with the at-home, with the urgency, we're not doing a lot of follow-up. We're not doing a lot of lockdowns, right? It's going to be closing on the spot. So that's what you want to do every single time. You don't want to talk to somebody that wants to wait a month and then make a decision, because that won't work out for anybody. So I want you guys to know that everything you guys are saying, we're doubling down a lot harder when we're doing the appointment.
Yep, that's the only way this thing works as well as it does. Is if we're all rowing in the same direction, we've got the same story, we got that congruency. What else you got for us, Gerard? Are there any other ones on there you wanted to cover?
Now, what about questions regarding kind of pre-qualifying them for credit a little bit?
Yeah, this is definitely a level 2 coordinator question.
A lot of questions.
It's hard to say because most people don't really know their credit, right? They have Credit Karma. It could say 700, it can be 620. You could say 620, it could be 700. So I think we should probably not be asking that question at all, to be honest, about credit. Just doing a little bit of fact finding, if they just got a couple of cars, if they got this, if they got that, then we know kind of the kind of purchase that they're doing. But if they're like, hey, well, I've never bought anything, I don't use credit cards, and you know, I had a whole bunch of student loans, they might not have the best credit. But I think that should almost always be on the director. I would rather get a credit fail than just leave something on the table. I don't know what you guys think.
I'm with you. I like asking covert questions again. You know, they're just rapport building questions, but they give us answers. If I see a newer car in the driveway, oh, that's a pretty sweet ride, man. How long have you had that? Oh, man, that's rad. Like, how much do you have to pay for that? I've been looking to get one myself, but I don't know if I can afford it. You know what I mean? And it comes across as you're just trying to be friendly rather than how much is your payment? Now I'm figuring out your DTI. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, and man, this house is sweet. How long have you guys owned it? You got to buy it. Like, is this your first home? Gives you a lot of information just by asking those kinds of questions that aren't coming across as, hey, I'm trying to figure out your credit score, or I'm trying to figure out your life. It's just stuff that people would ask, you know, if they like to.
Yeah.
So that's how I would go about it. I agree with you, Andres. I would never in my life ask somebody where their credit score is as a stranger on the road. You know what I mean? It's just melt. Yeah. Now, if you get some rapport build up,
well, and that's really that's not something I would say lead with, but sometimes the customer starts asking, well, do you guys finance? Like they start asking, and then that's kind of the key to be like, okay, Nate, I mean, I don't know exactly how you'd ask the question. I've been on for a minute, but if they start asking about financing, be like, yeah, absolutely. We do financing. And, you know, you guys feel like you got a pretty good credit score to get something financed? Yeah. I got a good credit score. Well, cool. You know, we'll go over some options with you.
Yeah, just keeping it simple.
It's very nonchalant, right? The way I would even say it, like, you know, would you think you'd be able to get approved? They're going to be yay or nay. I had a couple of people like, yeah, I can't get approved. I have, you know, $20 to my name. Like, yeah, that's not a good fit. That's not going to work out. And then the other thing is I had a customer last week His mom credit failed with GreenScan Synchrony, both of them. But then they had the tax return. So like, oh, well, look, we actually have this money. Like that's our job. We have to look for the money as closers, right? And that's how we made it happen. I've had people, they have a credit card, right? They maybe have a different credit line with Synchrony. It's a really big bank, even Green Sky. They could have had open, but maybe they failed this time. So there's a whole bunch of ways of getting that money. So that's why I wouldn't even get too much into it if I don't have to.
Well, and it could just be a little information just to help out the director, so he kind of knows how to steer it.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I don't want you guys, if they say I got a bad credit score, still set the appointment. It's our job to find the money, and who knows? Like treat everybody like a millionaire. It doesn't matter. So, maybe it's one of those things where it can kind of be like works for this guy, doesn't work for this guy. I like Obi's version of kind of like covertly figuring some of that stuff out.
And that's again back to yesterday. Sometimes you got to do your own little research, understand how credit works, so that you can figure out these questions to be able to ask, things that'll give you that information. If you don't know that stuff, go out there and learn it. That's how you're going to find out how to fix the stuff. And it's good for you to learn anyways.
Yep. It's important for everybody to have credit and understand it, because you're going to need it for the rest of your life. And the more that you can understand it, the more you can help other people understand it. So besides that, what else? Did you have anything else on the list too, Jared?
I think it's hard to think about questions is it's kind of like a case-by-case basis.
It sure is.
You don't really know what you're going to run into, and different people are going to respond to different things in different ways. So it's all about being in the moment and understanding and just being able to try to figure out how to help these people. It's going to be the best way to ask questions.
Yeah.
And by trying to figure out how I can help them, that's going to ask you questions. That's going to get you in the right position. Because some people we can't help, like we talked about last time.
It's a puzzle. And each question that we ask and answer that we get, it helps us solve the pieces of the puzzle to have this thing make sense.
And this all is completely reliant on your ability to use the script first and foremost. This is just above and beyond outside of the script to help solidify your appointment, solidify your rapport building and trust with these customers, and to have a little extra notes to be able to put into the calendar when you set up an appointment for your director. And sometimes you can rule somebody out by asking a couple of simple questions like the first 30 seconds, are you the homeowner? That's a quick qualifying question that could save you 6 or 8 minutes with somebody who's not even the owner of this house and be able to make a decision. I don't know how many of those conversations I had where I was just like going on and on and on, and here they are listening to me, and I'm 6-8 minutes into this, and they're like, you know what, I'm actually going to have to talk to my dad. He's the one that owns this house.
Yep.
They always hit you with that. If I was the owner, I'd do it, but I'm renting.
It is built into the script, but there's a qualifying question. Is there a spouse or anybody else that would make this decision with you? And we front load that by saying we have a lot of customizations and options. We really want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So is there a spouse or anyone that helps you make these sort of decisions?
And I think another important thing to remember is that this is to help somebody who's a little bit more advanced be able to build their skills and improve their reputation with their directors to set qualified appointments. But the reality is there's this term that's called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Because every single time we bring somebody into JKR Windows and teach them the basics, they come in and they're able to have success without knowing any of this stuff. All they do is just go in there and do the script, and they do the duplicate of choice, and they say today or tomorrow, 6 or 8 o'clock. Okay, and then they just go through the end of the script and they solidify things and tell them to do a little bit of homework and look into our company. Exactly how it's written on the page. And they're making money and they're seeing success. So the most important thing is to remember to keep it simple. The more that you add, the more complexity is added, the more uncertainty, the more questions and objections you're going to create for yourself. So if you can do this in a very subtle way without adding any extra complexity or uncertainty or creating any other objections, we're going to help you to realize if you're doing that or not, because we're going to be able to see your numbers. And if the numbers are good, we know that you're doing stuff right. You're keeping it simple. If your numbers start going down, just like this example we used at the beginning of the call, there's only a couple of things that could be going wrong. Either your mindset is a little tweaked right now, and we need to work on that, or your script's a little tweaked right now, and we need to work on that. And you added something in there that you shouldn't be adding in, and it's completely changing the trajectory of the possibilities of that appointment setting opportunity because you're adding something in there that shouldn't be in there. And thank goodness for this recording software so we can find that stuff much quicker.
But yeah, I think that was an amazing podcast, guys. I don't have anything else. Is there anything else you guys have?
I just wanted to add on to what Jeff was saying. I think he's right. This is a higher level thing. This isn't a way to, if you're not getting appointments, to start setting appointments. I feel like this is more like, if you're already setting and you're doing really well, guys, this is something that's going to take you to that next level. You know what I mean? If you're averaging 3 sales a week, this is going to take you up to 4, 5, 6 sales a week instead. That is stuff that you should already have the other stuff down pat that you're already making sales. This is just to help you capture those extra ones. Make sure that you're getting the right people in the right places, because sometimes asking the questions not only disqualifies, but it further qualifies and builds more urgency.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then I'll use myself as an example. When I started, I mean, I was setting 7, 8, 9 appointments a day. No problem, right? I mean, you can go out there and set 10 appointments. It's not hard. But like Obi said, is like, I would much rather have you guys set 4, and then you have 3 closed, than set 7, 1 falls off, and the other one doesn't even close because you're not qualifying people. Like there's a whole bunch of deals that are going to close because you qualified them at the door. Where before they would have been like, yes, 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 and we get there, and then they don't know they had a decision. They wait the night, they get killed. They're like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do this. So that's the main thing. Sometimes less is more. But yes, you should be setting already. The key number is going to be around, if you can set 4 solid appointments a day, you are making a lot of money.
All right, take it, listen to it, put it on repeat. There's some golden nuggets in here to take into your day-to-day activities and apply, but only if you're keeping the basics at the forefront. Thanks everybody for checking in, and we out.